I literally want to cry. So if you didn't know, I have a sister and her name's Ashley. And we both have boyfriends. And every night we both fall asleep on the phone with our boyfriends. So one day we're all hanging out and we're like just talking. And my sister's boyfriend looks at me and he's like, "You need to stop going into your sister's room in the middle of the night." And I look at him and I'm like, "What are you talking about? I don't have a reason to go into her room. Like I don't go into her room, especially in the middle of the night." Then my boyfriend hops in the conversation and he's like, No. He's like, "No, I hear Ashley go into Kayla's room every night and stare at her." So me and my sister both look at each other and we're like, we don't go into each other's rooms, do we? And we agreed that we do not. And they said this has been going on for months. So for months, somebody or something has been going into me and my sister's room for about 15 minutes every night and watching us sleep. But it only gets worse.
Story time about when my mom caught me doing it with my best friend.
I was 16 at the time, and there was this new boy that moved in across the street from us. He was super cute, and I noticed him right away. My parents were super strict. I wasn't allowed to have a boyfriend or even any guy friends, and I knew right away that I wanted to at least become this guy's friend because he was so cute. So one day I told my mom, "Hey, why don't we take cookies or something to welcome the new neighbors in town?" And my mom was like, "That's a great idea." So we end up going over and we meet them. They're really nice. And the cute boy comes downstairs and he tells his mom he's going to go to Bible study. Well, when we get home, I tell my mom, "Hey, you know what? Maybe I should join a Bible study group too." And my mom was like, "Great idea." She even told me to go ask him about it since he had mentioned it. One day he's mowing the lawn, so I decided to go talk to him and ask him about the Bible study group. He actually ended up taking me there that same day and we had a fun class. Over the next few weeks, we became really, really good friends. Best friends. We told each other everything. But there was always attraction between.
When I was 14, my dad's friends came and visited us because we moved a couple years ago. I knew they had a son around my age, but I didn't think anything of it because the last time I saw him he was so ugly. When they came over my house, this 6'1" fine-ass man walked into my house. We're going to call him Josh. That whole night there was so much sexual tension between us. Josh's family and my family were all sitting on my couch, but then our families left to go outside. When I tell you this man was so fine I could barely contain myself. Then me and Josh started talking and we found out that we have so much in common. We talked the whole night. His family didn't have a hotel room for that night, so they stayed at my house, cuddling. When I tell you he smelled so good. Chill. Anyways, halfway through the movie he shut the computer and I was freaking out because I was like, am I about to hook up with this fine ass boy who I haven't seen in years? Then one day in the 6th grade I got in trouble for talking too much, so I got sent to the principal's office and the principal looked at me as if he wanted to kill me. He told me to sit down and wait while he handled some business, and a while after he came back and told me to go back to class, but I felt like something was off, so I asked him if everything was okay and he stared me down and told me to leave. I was so sad I went home crying and I told my mom about what happened and to leave. I was so sad I went home crying and I told my mom about what happened and she explained to me that they were dating and she broke his heart. I was in shock. The next day at school I went to his office and gave him a piece of my mind because what my mom does has nothing to do with me, and he slowly walked towards me and I got a little nervous. Because he is so fucking hot, like I would let this man have my babies. He grabbed me by my waist and asked me if I wanted to do the dirty. Obviously I said yes, and he told me to take off my cloths, so I took off my cloths and I was so ready. Then he just stood there, so I asked him what he was waiting for and he took out his phone and took a picture of me, then said that he was going to expose me if I didn't help him. Told me that he would expose me if I didn't help him kill my mom. Of course I said no, like I would rather have my nudes exposed than kill my own mother. He said okay and posted it on Snapchat and Instagram. I tried to grab the phone but he was way too strong. Nobody from my school saw my nudes yet because they make us put all our phones in a bin until it's time to go home. The whole day at school I was panicking because I know when I go home my mom would beat my ass and tell the whole fucking family. I take the bus home and everyone uses their phone on the bus. I was so fucking scared, like I've never been so scared in my life. I was sitting next to my friend Rachel when this boy named Carlos looked at his phone with shock, so I knew for sure he saw my nudes. This motherfucker showed the whole fucking bus and him and his homies were all laughing at me, so I broke the boy's phone and jumped out the bus and walked home like a boss. On my way home I saw the I'm getting home I saw the principal at my front door. Yes, my fucking front door. As soon as I saw him I hid behind a tree so he wouldn't see me. Then I remembered he asked me to help him kill my mom, so he's definitely here to do it himself. My First intention was to call my mom and tell her that her ex was here to kill her and she needs to leave, but I knew she wouldn't believe me, so I took matters into my own hands. I ran up to the principal screaming and I straight up beat his ass. He was unconscious after, so I dragged his body to my backyard and digged up his grave and buried him underground. I also took his phone and deleted the pictures. Till this day everyone thinks he left town and my mom doesn't know her ex's body is in our backyard.
Last week, my 6-year-old son comes to me and says, Daddy, I saw mommy in bed with the neighbor when you were at work. So instead of confronting her when I found out, I thought of a plan to really fuck her. We invited all of her family over for Christmas dinner, and while we were eating, I said, hey Tommy, which is our son, how about you tell everyone what you told me a couple days ago? Everyone thinks he's gonna be over for Christmas dinner, and while we were eating, I said, hey Tommy, which is our son, how about you tell everyone what you told me a couple days ago? Everyone thinks he's gonna sing a song or tell a poem, but he goes, oh, I saw mommy bring home the neighbor and they went upstairs into their room and she got completely naked. Everyone gasped and I was like, Tommy, what else did they do? Tell us. And he goes, well, they did that thing. And I go, what thing? He goes, well, they did that thing in bed that you do with Aunt Jessie when she comes over.
This is why you should always pay attention to details. A woman was brushing her hair when she found a little bump at the back of her head, so she called her husband to have him check it out for her. He said it looks like a button. It's small, round, hairless, and flat at the top. He joked around it with her, asking, what do you think would happen if I pressed it? Then he did, and the woman instantly leaned up and gave him a kiss. Then the husband kept pressing it as a joke, but something went wrong. It seemed like he pressed it all too many times, and a cool numbness spread down the woman's neck, around her arms and her legs. Her eyes automatically shut and her vision went black. A while later, the woman woke up and learned that she had fainted. The husband kept apologizing with tears in his eyes as if it was all his fault. Eventually, they both went about their lives and tried to forget about this incident, but the woman just couldn't, because afterwards, she came across a photo of her family in the living room. It was a photo of her and her husband's wedding propped up on a ceramic urn. She looked closer at the photo of her own face. She's smiling as if she's the happiest girl in the world, but there's a small scar under her left eyebrow, a scar that she now didn't have.
My best friend's boyfriend starts DMing me on Instagram. He confesses that he had a crush on me when we were in college together, and I told him that I did too. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. From that day on, he would DM me every single day and we would just flirt back and forth. I started feeling really guilty and I told him one day I can't do this anymore. That's when he told me he also felt guilty and that the best thing was for us to stop talking, so we did. I was so sad. A few weeks passed by and my best friend asked me if she could have the apartment all to herself because she's planning a romantic dinner for him. I said yes, but I felt so jealous. I left the apartment because I realized that I was so in love with him. I went to the supermarket and ate a whole pack of Oreo cookies and went to the movies. I get a text message from my best friend asking me to come home immediately. My stomach sank and I thought she had found out. When I get there, she's crying and she says that he broke up with her. I asked if he said why, and she said because he was in love with another woman. My stomach sank again. I was there with her the entire night while she cried, knowing her boyfriend left her because of me. Part 3 is up. When my boyfriend and I are doing the dirty on his bed, I notice there's a little lens pointing straight at us. He goes to grab it, and we realize it's a little camera. The whole time we've been doing stuff on his bed, it's been recording us. That's when my boyfriend Dan said that it must have been his crazy ex. Let's call her Casey. He had told me that she was really crazy, but I didn't think she was that crazy. Dan starts looking throughout his whole apartment and he finds 2 more little cameras. One in the kitchen and one in the bathroom. As you can imagine, we didn't sleep that entire night. Of course, we went to the police and they opened an investigation, but they said they couldn't find anything. A week later, I get a DM from Casey, his ex-girlfriend. She starts abusing me through DM, calling me a bunch of names. She even said that I stole Dan from her, but I hadn't even met Dan when they broke up. Then she sends me a picture of my house, which means she knows where I live. I go straight to my boyfriend's apartment, and when I open the door, guess who's there? Casey is sitting on the couch with my boyfriend. It gets scarier. Part 3 is up. Story time about how I found out my boyfriend's ex-girlfriend was spying on us in the bedroom. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. My boyfriend and I have been together for 1 year. Our relationship is really good. We're like best friends and we tell each other everything. He always wants to spend time with me and we're planning on moving in together. Our families love each other and they're looking forward to us getting married someday. I'll call my boyfriend Dan. When Dan and I started dating, he told me that he had a really crazy ex. He was extremely controlling and didn't let him hang out with his friends or even his family. And when he broke up with her, she went nuts. She actually told her family that he was abusive just to get back at him. When we got together, Dan told me that he was scared his ex might try to do something to us. I told him not to worry, that she wouldn't do anything at all. Boy, was I wrong. Dan had his own apartment and I would stay at his place most nights. And of course, we did stuff in his bedroom. One night that we're on his bed doing stuff, I see a little tiny lens on his bookshelf pointing straight to us. I hadn't noticed it before, so I asked him what it was. He said he didn't know, so he went to it and pulled it out. It was a tiny little camera. Part 2 is up. When my boyfriend and I are doing the dirty on his bed, I notice there's a little lens pointing straight at us. He goes to grab it and we realize it's a little camera. The whole time we've been doing stuff on his bed, it's been recording us. That's when my boyfriend Dan said that it must have been his crazy ex. Let's call her Casey. He had told me that she was really crazy, but I didn't think she was that crazy. Dan starts looking throughout his whole apartment and he finds 2 more little cameras. One in the kitchen and one in the bathroom. As you can imagine, we didn't sleep that entire night. Of course, we went to the police and they opened an investigation, but they said they couldn't find anything. A week later, I get a DM from Casey, his ex-girlfriend. She starts abusing me through DM, calling me a bunch of names. She even said that I stole Dan from her, but I hadn't even met Dan when they broke up. Then she sends me a picture of my house, which means she knows where I live. I go straight to my boyfriend's apartment, and when I open the door, guess who's there? Casey is sitting on the couch with my boyfriend. It gets scarier. Part 3. My boyfriend's crazy ex is sitting on the couch, and I'm terrified. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. She had just finished sending me a bunch of DMs on Instagram, totally abusing me. But my boyfriend didn't know this. I walk into the apartment and they're both sitting on the couch. She turns around and asks him, "Is that her?" My boyfriend looks at me with a serious face and says, "Yes, that's her." Then she shows me DMs on Instagram that I had supposedly sent to some guy, and that she passed herself off as this guy to see if I would fall. And the messages were so dirty and disgusting. I tell my boyfriend that's not me and that I would never do that to him. He just stares at me and doesn't say anything. That's when I try to show him all of the DMs that she had just sent me. But I noticed they were all gone. She actually unsent every single DM. Now I had no proof and it was just her word against mine. That's when I accused her of planting the cameras in our bedroom. She actually smiled at me and turned around and told my boyfriend she would never do that. Then she slapped me. My boyfriend's crazy ex slaps me and lunges at me. Of course, I start attacking her right back. My boyfriend separates us finally and asks both of us to leave his apartment. I was so crushed that he didn't believe me. So far, she had spied on us in bed, hacked my Instagram to send DMs to herself to make it look like I was talking to another guy, and threatened me by telling me that she knew where I lived. Oh yeah, and she physically attacked me too. I left my boyfriend's apartment and a few days later he comes looking for me. I explained everything to him and he said he had no choice but to believe me. His ex was too crazy. Then he told me that she went back to his apartment that night and picked his lock. She got naked and crawled into his bed. He woke up, kicked her out, and went straight to get a restraining order. He scanned his apartment for more cameras and found 2 more. What should we do? Story time about how I caught my boyfriend cheating on me and I got him arrested. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. My boyfriend and I have only been together for 2 months. I'm gonna call him Rex. We live in a pretty small town and everybody knows that Rex is a player. He asked me out and I said yes because I always had a crush on him. After a few dates, he asked me to be his girlfriend. I said yes under the condition that he was totally monogamous. And he said of course. A few weeks into the relationship, I noticed that he was always hiding his phone from me. And whenever he would put his phone on a table, he would flip the screen side down. Of course, this had me on high alert. One night we went out with friends and I made sure that he got super drunk. I took advantage and went through all of his Instagram DMs. And of course he had been talking to about 30 girls. And I knew some of these girls and they knew that we were together. He had even set up a date with one of the girls for the following day at a bar. And you better believe that I was gonna catch him red-handed. I show up to the bar and I don't see them. I go back to the parking lot and there he is in his car making out with this girl. I knock on the window. Part 2 is up. My boyfriend lunges at the girl that I just caught him cheating on me with. He starts pulling her hair and pushes her to the ground. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Tried to get him to stop and I pulled his arm. Then he turns around and starts chasing me. I run back into the bar and 2 guys stop him. I called the cops right away and they came and arrested him. Later on that day, he asked me to bail him out and I said no. Everybody knows what he did. The other girl is trying to press charges and my dad wants me to get a restraining order. But I'm still in love with him and I don't want to get him in any more trouble. I even want to take him back, but I know I shouldn't, right? Story time about how my boss caught me hooking up with my coworker at work. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. A few years back, I was working at a really bougie restaurant on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood. I was a host and all of the servers were super attractive. Everyone was either a model or an actress. I'd only been working there for a few months when this new guy got hired. Let's call him John. John was super attractive. Every single girl that worked at the restaurant was trying to find out if he was single or not. Well, it turns out he had a girlfriend. His girlfriend was super jealous. She was so jealous that she would actually come to the restaurant and sit in his section and just order food. She would stay for hours. One day, John and I had the opening shift. It was him, myself, and all of the kitchen staff. It was pretty slow, so we got to talking. He told me he was a model and he said that I was so beautiful that I should start modeling too. Well, that went straight up to my head. Once our shift ended, he asked me if I wanted to hang out, and of course I said yes. Then he grabbed my hand and took me to the back room. Suddenly, he closed the door and started kissing me. I was a little bit shocked, but I got into it. My manager walks in. Part 2 is my boyfriend is in his car making out with another girl. I caught them red-handed. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. My boyfriend Rex quickly puts on his shirt, and the other girl puts on her shirt too. I try to open the door, but it's locked. And to my surprise, my boyfriend gets mad at me and asks me what I'm doing there. So of course I say to him, "What are you doing here?" That's when he finally gets out of the car, and he tells the other girl to stay in the car. I told him that he had promised to be monogamous. That's when he said that I was crazy and that he had never promised that, and that he had no intention to be serious with me. Then he said that I made that entire conversation up in my head. And then he told me to leave. I was so shocked. I couldn't believe what he had just said to me. The girl gets out of the car and she actually apologizes to me. and she told me that Rex had told her that he was single. Then Rex lunges at her, starts pulling her hair, and pushes her to the ground. Part 3 is up. So John and I are making out in the back room, and suddenly my manager walks in. We were also doing other things, but I'm not going to mention that. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Well, John and I tried to pretend that we were back there cleaning. It so did not work. My manager said, "Are you guys making out back here?" We both said no at the same exact time. That's when he says that John's girlfriend had been waiting for him for half an hour. We didn't even realize how long we had been in there. Then my manager, let's call her Sandy. Sandy was really annoyed and I could tell. And she waves John's girlfriend to come over. He comes running over and she can see that John had his shirt halfway on. She looks at John and says, "I knew you'd do it again." She started crying, but of course John denied everything. And so did I. Of course I felt absolutely terrible. Then my manager looks at me and says, "If you want to be an SLUT, you better go find a job somewhere else." After my manager caught me making out with John and told his girlfriend, she told John he could leave. But she takes me to her office and writes me up. Then she says she's gonna have to talk to the owner of the restaurant and I should be ready to get fired. The following day I show up to work and everybody knows what happened. One of the other girl servers comes up to me and she's like, "You know that Sandy had a crush on John, right?" And I was like, "No." Then it all made sense. Of course she didn't want to get him in trouble. She liked him. Well, Sandy didn't take one thing into account. I had a great relationship with the owner of the restaurant. I was the only person that talked to him because everyone else was scared of him. So he came into the restaurant, I explained to him what happened, but I also told him that it was unfair that Sandy only wrote me up and that she threatened to fire me. He called Sandy over and asked her if it was true. And Sandy said that John said that I had pressured him into making out with me. As if! The owner of the restaurant said I was not getting fired. So I'm still working there. John is too. Sandy is too. But I don't know. Should I quit? What do you guys
Put a finger down if from as soon as you were born, your parents would force you to watch porn, specifically a man and a woman. That way, as you grew up, you would think that relationships were supposed to be between men and women. And so every time you saw a couple of the same gender, you would automatically assume that they weren't normal and had some type of mental illness. And so when you grew up and sooner or later made a friend who you got really close with and eventually became best friends with, and she came out to you and told you she was gay, you ended up dropping her. And not only that, but made a fake page and outed her, so then the whole school knew, but she still doesn't know that it was you. And so one day when your parents who gave you that mindset died in a car crash, that friend you outed and completely violated offered to let you stay with them, and her parents would take custody of you even though you weren't as close as you used to be, and you took up on that offer and started living with her, but she still doesn't know that it was you who outed her until one day you felt too bad, so you decided to tell her. I'm running out of time, so like for part 2.
I was a product of an affair between my mom and dad. My mom was already married and had a 1-year-old daughter. She wanted to abort me, but my dad begged her and paid her a hefty sum. She signed over all rights and I didn't see her for my 14 years of life. She recently contacted my dad saying she wanted to get to know me better, and he said it's entirely up to me. I was skeptical but decided to meet her. I've been talking to my mom's side for about 2 months when at a family gathering they all sat me down and said the reason they contacted me was because my half-sister was having kidney failure and was basically dying. At a loss for words, I got up and left. Told my dad and he said it's entirely up to me, but I should get tested just to see before I make my decision. So I did. When my mom found out, she thought this was me agreeing and told everyone the good news. I did a lot of thinking and I decided I would not be donating my kidney. This family had done nothing for me. The only reason they tried to get in contact was for my kidney. So I don't want anything to do with them. I got loads of hateful calls and messages but decided to stand by my decision. My stepsister called me and said I'm a douche for giving her false hope. People are saying I'm wrong because I can save a life. My stepsister did nothing wrong. But I feel so used. Am I the asshole for not giving my sister my kidney?
I was in class on Zoom. I wanted to go to sleep, honestly, because like when I'm tired, I go to sleep. I end up falling asleep and then class ends and everyone starts leaving the class. Except me, because I was like in a whole other universe at this point. I was dreaming, I was flying. At this point, me and the teacher are alone in the call. This is the best part! Then the teacher starts talking to me and he's like, "Samantha, wake up. Samantha, please. Samantha, you have another class." He woke me up, but I was half awake, so I didn't really know what was going on. So I thought it was my brother waking me up, and I straight up yelled. I was like, "Shut up, you fat booger." And so then
Story time. My parents found out that I was dating a white boy. So a little background information. My parents are super strict, especially my dad. And on top of that, my dad thought that races should not mix. One of his sayings was, "You don't see a blue jay fucking a pigeon." AKA, white people and black people should not be together. Sounds fucking stupid. Yeah, I know. Anyways, like I was saying, it was my freshman year of high school and I had been dating this boy for 2 months. And of course he was white. And we had to keep it super low key because if any of my friends found out about it, they would have fucking told my dad. Now when I look back at it, those weren't good friends at all. Anyways, every Friday, my boyfriend and I would go to the movies. And we would go to this theater that was 45 minutes away because nobody that I knew would be there. The only person that knew that I was dating a white boy was my sister. Well, the one day after the movies, I couldn't get a ride home, so I had to get a ride home with him and his family. And as soon as I pulled up, my parents were waiting outside, like for part 2.
Story time of how I got the best revenge on my worst enemy. So basically, there was this girl that literally copied my absolute every move. It all started because the boy that she was dating tried to hit me up. So I guess she was trying to be more like me, I guess. And it all started when I got a puppy. Literally 2 days later, she ended up getting a puppy. The same kind of puppy. Then about a week goes on and I dye my hair blonde. Well, I bleach it. And she dyes her hair blonde. Okay, then the next day, I posted on my story about this app that I was using. It's called Fitness Coach, and I was getting my dream body from it. Also, the link to the app will be in my bio. But then not even an hour later, she posted that she was using it. Then I just noticed every single little thing that I did, she would also start to copy. She even started literally copying my outfits head to toe. So once I noticed that, I decided I was gonna try something out. And I bought a bald cap from the store. And then I posted on a private.
So when my sister was 9, she got her first period. I was only 7 and it was only my brothers and my dad at home. So me being the only other girl, she called me in the bathroom when it happened and showed me this huge fucking blood clot that fell on the floor. We didn't know what it was and thought she had a baby at home. We named it Chase. So we picked it up and showed it to our brothers, saying it was a child that was going to grow up. So when it was dinner, all of us set a place for it at the dinner table, and when my mom got home, she saw it on the table and panicked, yelling what TF was on the table and who.
Oh my god, the funniest thing just happened to me. So I was in Ragdoll Engine, yeah, and I was just vibing, you know. And this girl comes up to me and she's like, oh my god, you're that girl from TikTok who made the video that was like, oh, this is a message from my mum. And oh my gosh, when she said that, I was like, huh? How do you know it's me? Because I literally change my avatar all the time, so it's not like she could recognize me from my avatar. And then I realized I had the exact same outfit on that I had when I made that video. But she was like, oh, yeah, you're that girl who made that video, aren't you? And then there was another person in the same server who had seen the video. So I kind of just played it off like it wasn't me, and that I just had the similar avatar, but like, oh my god. People actually recognize me. Okay, bye.
Story time about how I caught my dad doing the dirty with my best friend. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. My mom and dad have been married for 30 years. My dad started modeling when he was really young, and he still does it to this day. Every single time that I would bring a friend over to my house, they would always talk about how cute my dad is. It never annoyed me at all because I was so proud of my dad, but it really bothered my mom. So out of respect for my mom, I would just tell my friends not to say anything. My mom is definitely the jealous type. My best friend and I have known each other for about 3 years. She was the new girl at school and we became friends, and ever since then we've been inseparable. She always comes over to my house, we have sleepovers, and my family really likes her. My mom even takes her shopping with us and buys her tons of stuff. She always comes with us to get manicures and pedicures and facials as well. A few years ago, my mom told me that my dad was unfaithful to her, and it really upset me. Basically, my mom couldn't trust him at all. And ever since then, I've kept an eye on him as well. One day I came home early from work. I see my best friend sitting on the couch with my dad. She was kissing his neck. When they saw me, they got up from the couch part two. My best friend kissing my dad on the neck, and when they both saw me, they jumped off the couch right away. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. My best friend said, oh, you're finally home. And my dad literally just walked toward the kitchen like nothing had happened. My best friend walks toward me to give me a hug, but I stop her straight in her tracks. I asked her why she was kissing my dad's neck. She laughs and said, of course I wasn't. And then I said, I just saw it. And she said that she was just thanking him for all the stuff my mom and dad do for her. Right, I was not buying it. My dad didn't even look me in the eyes after that. I decided not to question her any further, but I was really angry with my best friend. After that, I was totally convinced that there was something going on between them. So I decided to set a trap. I told my mom and dad I would be at work all day and that I would be home really late. And I told my best friend the same thing and that I wouldn't be able to hang out with her. I knew that my mom would be at work all day, which meant that my dad had the house all to himself. I said bye to my dad, but I sneaked back into the house and hid in my room all day. Then I started hearing voices. It sounded just like my best friend. I opened my dad's bedroom door and there they are on the bed doing the dirty. Disgusting. Part 3 is up. I walk in on my dad and my best friend doing the dirty. They had no clothes on and they were doing it in my mom's bed. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. Because I am so intelligent, I recorded the whole thing on my phone. My father had the audacity to yell at me and tell me to get out of the room. I said no way. Best friend starts dressing herself frantically, begging me for forgiveness. Then my dad tells her to keep her mouth shut. Well, I don't hesitate for 1 second and I send my mom the video that I just recorded. My dad pulls the phone away from me and throws it at the wall. Then he starts trying to negotiate with me. He said, if you don't tell your
your mom, I will never do this again, I promise. I told my best friend to go downstairs and wait for me on the couch. My dad starts putting on his clothes, and by the time he's done, my mom is home. Of course, my mom went off on my best friend, telling her how ungrateful she was. She asked my dad for a divorce. A few days later, I get a message from another friend. She tells me that she also did that with my dad. Since then, 4 other women have told me the same thing. They all go to college with me, so none of them are underage, thank God. My dad is begging my mom back, but she doesn't know what to do. We're both just in shock.
My future mother-in-law is the absolute worst person I've ever met in my life. I'm 30 years old and my boyfriend is 31 and we've been together for 8 months. He's the sweetest and most caring man I've ever met in my life, but the biggest surprise is when I met his mother. I'm a natural redhead, so when we sat down for dinner, she asked me if my parents had the same color hair. And then she proceeds to ask me, does the carpet match the drapes? I looked over to my boyfriend, who seemed equally as shocked, but he didn't say anything. And when I didn't respond back, she said, don't worry, I'll ask my son about it later. She then went on to attack my appearance and said my hair was too curly and I really needed to learn how to run a brush through my hair and think about my appearance more when I'm out with her son. And when I lost my appetite, she told me it was a good thing that I'm watching what I eat because it would be a shame if I got any bigger. This was my first meeting with this woman, and as soon as I got into my car, I burst into tears until I got home. I told my boyfriend I needed some time. He went into apology overload, and this started by sending me flowers to my office every day and leaving me messages. He said he spoke with his mom and promised this would never happen again. With this reassurance, I decided to give it another chance.
Story of the time my friend made me lie to my parents. So I was either 15 or 16, and it was one of the first time that I tried. So we did a lot of that, and then we went back to her house. I started to get really paranoid, and it felt like I was floating. And every sound that I heard felt like it was echoing. I ended up getting so scared that I texted my mom and asked her to pick me up and told her what we were doing. My friend ended up seeing my phone and started freaking out. But my parents were always laid back as long as I told them the truth. And I told her that, but she still freaked out. So she told me to call my mom and tell her that we were pulling a prank on her so that I could stay. You could tell my mom thought I was lying because she was like, okay, well, I'm still gonna come pick you up. Mind you, I was supposed to sleep over. But my friend really didn't want me to leave. So she came up with this great plan. She told her little siblings to go up to my parents' car when they got there and pretend to be laughing because they fell for the joke. And my parents are not dumb. And her siblings were not actors. So
I had just been dress coded for having a singular rip on my knee, right? And the vice principal and the assistant teacher harassing me the whole time. They make me change in a room with cement walls and dirt floors. They lock me in there, make me change, and they give me pants from the Lost and Found that are 2 sizes too small and dirty, right? So the teacher's walking me back to my class. She's harassing me the whole time, making fun of me. And I get back to class and I'm just crying because I'm so humiliated. They really just brought me down. So my teacher comes up to me and she's like, what's wrong? What happened? Why'd they take you down to the office? What took so long? And I tell her the story, and I tell the class the story, and nobody believes me. They're like, well, some of the students did. They were like, what, really? That's crazy. But the teacher was like, I'm not buying it. You're lying to me. And I was like, yeah, I wouldn't believe myself either. That's crazy, right? So at the end of the day, I go down to the office and I ask for my pants back. And they said, no, we don't want you wearing those pants again. So I was like, okay, I'll go back another day. Part 6.
Girls, tell me about a time where your quick thinking probably saved your life. I'll go first. 2 years ago, I was walking my dog at the park, and a man approached me and asked to take a picture of her. And I said yes, because why not? It's a picture of a dog. So he starts taking a picture of my dog, and then I realized that he was holding up her collar, and then it hit me. My address is on that collar. He's not taking a picture of my dog, he's taking a picture of my address. So I told him that I actually didn't feel comfortable with him having a picture of my dog, and I asked him to delete it. So he deletes it and then starts walking away really fast. And I was like, excuse me, sir, no, could you also go into your deleted album and delete it from there? And he goes, I don't have a deleted album. And I was like, you have an iPhone. Everybody has a deleted album. Could you please delete the picture? And he was like, sorry, I don't have a deleted album. And keeps walking away. And keep in mind, this is 2 PM in a park. There's other people around. So now I'm chasing after him. And I'm telling him, sir, I know you have the album. I will show you where the album is. Can you please go onto your phone so that we can delete the picture? Oh, part 2, 10 seconds. And he goes, fine. And he goes on his phone, does something for a second. He goes, there, it's gone. And I was like, could I see the deleted album just to make sure it's gone? And he goes, no, you can't look at my phone. And I was like, I don't want to look at your phone. I just want to see the album just to make sure the picture is gone. That's it. And he goes, no, you're not going to look at my phone. And I was like, sir, I'm not going to stop and I'm not going to leave until you show me the album. So please just show me the album so we can be done with this. So he shows me the album. The picture was still there. So I made him delete it in front of my eyes. What if I hadn't noticed that he took a picture of my address? And what if I went home that day and you know, that night when I took my dog out to pee, he was outside waiting for me. I mean,
يا حب مكسك جي وروحي حلالك جي وقلبي فدالك صدقي ما القى مثالك يرحم انسان ربك جي وروحي حلالك جي وقلبي فدالك صدقي ما